Okay, we are live. Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to our spoiler discussion on Star Wars: The Last Jedi. In case you're not bored of this movie enough right now, if you've gone on anyone's sub box, there have been reviews left, right, and center. And we actually did a video on our spoiler-free review. So if you still haven't seen the movie, I guess why are you clicking on a spoiler review in the first place? Tonight, we're joined with Tayte and James and James Parker. Unfortunately, George couldn't make it tonight. Neither could Dave. Schedules just weren't marrying up, but nevertheless, we've got a very busy week this week, and tonight was kind of our only opportunity to get a video out there, and we have a lot to discuss. So, gents, how are we doing tonight?
Good.
Okay, that's exhausted that one. We move on.
Simple result.
So, yeah, Tate and both of you guys didn't jump on the spoiler-free one. So I guess before we get into spoilers and everything like that, we'll just sort of open with your initial thoughts on the film. How many times you've seen it? If you've seen it more than once at this point,
You can go first, mate.
I've only seen it the once. I do want to see it again, but maybe not for a little while. It was good. It was fine. You know, it was a decent film in general. A bit exhausting, but I'd take that down to runtime and the fact that there was a lot going on. There's quite a lot to it and quite a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was fine. Rian Johnson's directing was pretty good. There was some better performances in general. Yeah, I was quite happy with it.
How about you, Tate?
I've only seen it once, and I won't be able to see it again until probably March, April, or May, whenever it becomes available online.
Well, you can buy it on 4K. Maybe. No.
Maybe not. But yeah, no. I have to say, because we went up with George and a couple of other friends to the Leicester Square opening of it. And I have to say, the cinema experience there was probably one of the best I've ever had. Purely because of the reasons of that's a big screen.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever been to Leicester Square Empire, or what is now Cineworld, the screen is massive. You can't even describe it. We watched The Force Awakens in 3D IMAX beforehand, which really got me in the mood for the next film, which was really good. I know it probably didn't get Chris in a good mood. Put him in a very bad mood, actually. But no, it really kind of set up very well. They then had the person who runs the Cineworld there in Leicester Square come out onto like the front of everyone, and kind of he introduced one of the producers and Rian Johnson. And Rian Johnson came out. They had a very, very quick speech about the film, and then the movie just started immediately. And that experience alone is good enough in itself. As far as my opinion on the film is concerned, it's okay. It's got the best way of putting it is because a couple of my friends were asking for my opinion on what the film was like before they went into it. And I said it has two of the best Star Wars moments of all time in it, and has two of the worst. And they kind of looked at me very confusingly and said, how is that possible in one film? And I said, trust me, it's possible in one film.
Yeah, no, I was pretty much the same in all honesty. Like, even in the spoiler-free review, I really kind of hadn't made up my mind at that point where I felt whether I liked it, whether I didn't. I was somewhere in the middle, maybe tending towards didn't like it, but more with Force Awakens, for example, I went to see that the first time and I knew outright I didn't like it, and that only got increasingly so on the multiple viewings I had of it. Rogue One, I went to see it, immediately knew I liked it, and it's got better on multiple viewings. This one, I really didn't know, and more so than ever, this one needed a repeat viewing for me. So I've seen it twice right now. Second time I went to see it, I actually went to see it with you, James, where you saw it for the first time. And my thoughts are definitely more collected on this now. I know now what I think about this movie. And really, in terms of a second viewing, I did enjoy it a lot more a second time, I will say that. However, the problems I had with the movie in the first place became more apparent. Not to where it ruined the film for me, but I think a lot of people are zoning in very similar areas, judging by all the different reviews I've seen and what I've read on the internet. People tend to have the same problems with it. In terms of audiences, though, obviously, when we went to the midnight, it's a room full of Star Wars fans, so everyone's in the moment. Everyone's, you know, laughing, applauding, whatnot. My second audience was dead.
It was brilliant.
Which
absolutely stone cold.
It was. Our second audience was incredibly unforgiving to this film, and made it all the more awkward in the very unfunny jokes in this film. And we'll get onto the comic relief as we get into our review later. The opening... Go on.
This film has divided fans. Like,
yeah,
I've seen loads of fans saying, I really enjoyed it. And they can kind of put aside the goofiness and put aside the other stuff because the core to the film, the main part of the plot to the film and the beef of it is the best part of the film. We'll go into it a bit more when we actually talk in detail about the film, but I'm willing to say straight off the bat that the scenes that had anything to do with the Force, apart from one scene set in space, were phenomenal. Anything that was Force kind of orientated in a Star Wars film, funnily enough, was the best parts of the film.
Yeah.
The worst parts of the film were to do with characters that basically could have been written out of the film and it would have no difference. Like, I'll use one example straight off the bat. You could have had Finn in a coma for this entire film and nothing would have changed. Which is really disappointing for a character who is so important in the first film. The fact that he has absolutely no development, even slightly. And the only development he has is with a character that universally, even the critics have disliked. So
with a very shaky moral at the end of the film, which I don't know if makes much military sense.
Probably one of the most Disney-like sentences of all time.
Yes.
Like, that sentence was cheesier than La La Land, and I love La La Land for some of its cheesiness, but that was too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something I guess we'll have to get into a bit later, but if there's something I've quite liked about this since viewing it, I sent you the article as well, dude. There was there's been a lot of really interesting criticism, like film criticism, written about this film already in response to a lot of the problems people have had. And yeah, it's actually made me think a little bit more about the film. And actually, it's changed my opinion slightly. It's kind of why I want to view the film again sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
and it's down to a lot of those scenes that some of us really dislike. But actually, while I don't think stuff that we're going to talk about isn't, there are some scenes that are a bit rubbish. They actually have a point to them, and I can see sort of where that point was, even if it wasn't explored brilliantly.
I look forward to hearing your point on what the point of Canto Bight was, but we'll get to that later.
Here's the thing. Like,
it's a good one.
I have some form of problem with some criticisms of films, especially films which are geared to kids in some way, shape, or form. It's very difficult to judge a film from like a child's perspective because I don't know what kids are thinking about this film. I don't know whether they love the Canto Bight scene, whether they love the film in general, or whether they thought that some areas were too dark, some areas were too light, whether they jokes landed with kids or not. Because the only reviews I've seen are from people who want kids, because you never see film reviews from kids. It's just unheard of. So it's really difficult to judge this film being, I'd say, marketed to kids in some way, shape, or form, whether they enjoyed it as well. Because as adults, we can find the flaws in it, but kids would just pass over those flaws. They'd think, oh, look, Leia's floating through space. That's pretty cool. I can't believe she can do that. Like, being a person who's probably only just been introduced to Star Wars, they think, oh, that's a thing now. That's pretty cool. With us, or older people, we've had a bit of time to kind of get used to the universe. We've like gone through all the extended stuff that has been put on top. We've gone through the TV series that have been attached to it, and we've learned the rules that have been set in place. This film added in some new rules, and because of that, we didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, the Jedi are pretty much gods in this one. They straight up add about 2 different powers. So really, the realm of possibility with what the Jedi can do is just limitless after this movie. But what you were talking about there is like, can kids review this film, or is it geared towards kids? That's really where my biggest problem with this film is, and it became more apparent on second viewing, is that this movie is tonally all over the place. For the most part, with each of the character arcs, apart from Finn's, it gears up for a very dark, sort of weathered, aged quality to the film. Like, you've got Luke dealing with wanting the Jedi to end, and I mean, he straight up says in the movie he went to that island to die. You've got Rey, who's tending towards the dark side. You've got Kylo Ren dealing with his identity and where his destiny is going to go and everything like that. You've got a turbulent relationship within the Resistance itself with Holdo and Poe. And then you've got like a comedy you know, with Finn and Rose in the middle, and then on top of that, you've also got some really out of place one-liners.
Chris, you got it completely wrong. The most heartfelt moment of the film was meant to be when Rose looked at that weird dog and cried.
And then the movie stops dead in its tracks to do a bit of animal rights activism.
Ironically, it stops dead at the race. Oh dear.
But yeah, no, that's really on second viewing. That's what I noticed more. It feels confused, but I felt more so in this one than I did with Force Awakens. The sort of Disney machine in the background, that Marvel quality to it, where you're having a dramatic moment, you're swept up in the drama of the scene and the character and the script, and then throw a one-liner in there just to end the scene with.
Yeah,
I disagree. I think The Force Awakens is much more Disney-fied. And Rogue One was a little bit like that. But what you've got in this one is you've got an auteur director.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson's been allowed to meld this in a way that no one predicted. Part of the point of the film is that everything, all the theories that people were making up about Rey and Snoke, whatever other bollocks they thought was important, isn't there. So whatever Abrams had planned, Johnson scrapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abrams planned anything in this film. He's a fucking idiot. Guy couldn't plan a film if it killed him. So, you know, in this one, we've actually had like an auteur director let loose on Star Wars.
Yeah.
The comparison I drew was with KOTOR, with Knights of the Old Republic 2, which is the same thing. You've got a deconstruction of the franchise explored in a way that's tonally completely different to the rest of the franchise itself. You know, you wouldn't catch. There are scenes in this that you wouldn't catch within, 500 meters.
The comedy I felt in this film is the kind of comedy that I'd expect from the Han Solo film.
Yeah.
Yeah, the comedy was basically Avengers standard.
But here's the thing. If that was in the Han Solo film, I would say the comedy is spot on. Because it's an anthology film.
The thing is, I mean, I've got to get over the fact that I am never going to get another Star Wars movie of the quality of the original trilogy. I just need to accept that. That's something that's very hard to accept, but it's something that I'm going to have to get over. But if you go back to those original...
Episode 9.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams.
But the comedy in like that original trilogy, and I mean, I guess it's always unfair to keep going back to that, but I have to because it's in the saga. The comedy in like Empire, for example, it fits with the whole tone of the movie. Like it feels seamless. It feels part of a whole. Whereas this one, it feels like this. I don't know whether it's a studio thing or whether they're mandated to do a joke every few minutes, but it felt tacked on. That's what it felt like to me. And in terms of the script as well, we talk about Rian Johnson, who hasn't really done all that much before this. He did Looper, and he actually directed my favorite episode of Breaking Bad, which is a phenomenally written episode. A lot of people have been saying that he's been challenging expectations with this one, and he's twisted things, arguably maybe a little bit too much. It seems like a lot of the things that were set up from that last movie, what you were talking about, James, have just been scrapped in this one or diverted just for the sake of it. And whereas I usually applaud that, and I'm glad they've sort of managed to move away from the familiar style, the all too familiar style that Force Awakens was. Some of them felt like they were just thrown in there. Like, I guess we're going to be getting into the whole movie in a minute, but for example, the bit where Luke throws the lightsabers over his shoulder, I didn't like that bit, but it felt like it was just thrown in there just to be different, to challenge our own expectations. And I think that's fine to do that to some regard, but I think maybe in this movie it was pushed a little bit too much. There was sort of twists within twists. It sounds like an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
It would have made more sense for him to just drop the lightsaber on the floor and just walk off instead of throwing it over the shoulder. Because dropping it on the floor also symbolizes him losing his touch with the Force and not wanting to be part of that life anymore. Throwing it over his shoulder is him completely rejecting it in a humorous way. Like, there are different ways that you can go about it. That was thrown in for a cheap laugh, but you could have had an emotional effect of it, of him longingly looking at it, and then just opening his hand and dropping it on the floor and then walking off, or passing it back to Rey and then walking off.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to be all over the place if we just go into it now. So I guess this is a good time as any. As we said, this is the spoiler review. So final warning if you're still watching at this point. But what we're going to do is we are going to comb through the entire movie. Now, I don't know if I've got all these scenes in order. This is after second viewing. I've tried to order every single scene. We are going to go from beginning to end, scene by scene, character by character, but we're going to settle on some of the big discussion points, especially Snoke and Luke and I guess like Kylo and Rey once we get to those. So we kick off after the crawl with the First Order attacking the Resistance, surprise, surprise, with a new ship called the Dreadnought. Now, what immediately struck me on second viewing of this film is that everything that happened in Force Awakens kind of feels pointless at this point because they destroyed Starkiller Base. You would think that would be a huge blow to the First Order. And it really isn't. They're still kind of at the height of their power after this one. It doesn't feel like anything's happened or anything's progressed and everything's sort of just stayed at a stalemate.
Well,
I'm willing to say that's because they took down the entire council opposition. It's like taking away your home city in exchange for taking away an entire government.
I just want to know who's getting the funding for all this thing. Like, we see Snoke later in the movie in like a solid gold dressing gown. Like, does he have some investment in Canto Bight casinos? Like, how is he getting the money to fund all this?
That is the point of the Canto Bight scene. You know, it's the hive of scum and villainy, but approached from the other side. So yeah, when you say who's funding all this, it's those arseholes on that particular planet.
Well, they talk about the weapons, like the weapons dealers, but I'm talking about enough money to construct a Starkiller Base and then everything else that goes along with it. You've got to pay wages to all the workers, right? Like, they're not going to do it for free. It's not a voluntary service.
You reckon the stormtroopers are paid wages? You reckon they're
minimum wage?
Go, Dave, come on, mate. We've got. I've got to cash this one in.
They
can't be paid at the end of the month again.
They get military discount on things. I don't know. Like, I guess so, right?
They probably get veterans discount. Yeah.
My favorite thing.
Chris, you have to remember that Supreme Leader Snoke is technically head of a religion.
Yeah, he is, and they do mention again that it is a religion in this film, which I liked.
Is that the first time they've outright called the Jedi? No. In
the original movie,
religions, yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. But my favorite bit of this opening scene actually isn't General Hux. This was rumored a couple of months ago, and I guess I read the article, and I guess I just stored the information away in my head and didn't think anything of it. But when I saw it in the movie, I had to stop myself from just bursting out laughing. Adrian Edmondson. For anyone who doesn't know, Adrian Edmondson is a British comedian who was in such comedies as The Young Ones or Bottom. He's one of my favorite comedians, and he's just such like an identifiable personality. And it's continuing the tradition of having like old, middle-aged, balding, slightly overweight British people as an Imperial officer. And it really filled me with so much joy seeing him in a Star Wars movie. He actually gets quite a lot to do in this movie. He's in like quite a few scenes when it keeps cutting to the ship.
He's mostly there to be sarcastic at Hux.
Yeah.
He's a real like joke in this film.
Like, he just needs to be armed with like a cricket bat or a frying pan or something and be smacking it over General Hux's head left, right, and center.
I'm not going to lie, I'm really surprised that Hux didn't say the words "mummy" in this film or something along those lines when he's being beaten or taunted. Like, I'm going to go tell mom, like that kind of thing.
He's written like that, though, isn't he? He
is written like that.
He's a lot more pantomime in this one.
Yeah.
But actually, I praise this. In the spoiler-free review, we were talking about General Hux and sort of how the characters either evolved or changed since the first movie. The first movie, he gets that really over-the-top, like, Nazi speech thing.
Bow down to the First Order!
Which is still technically probably his most over-the-top that he's ever been in any of these movies. But with this movie, it feels like they've gone with a different angle. In Force Awakens, it felt like this is your new Tarkin. This is sort of your Tarkin stand-in for this clone that is A New Hope. In this one, it felt like they went with, let's just make this just like a really simpering, weaselly, hilarious character. Like, he's a comic relief character almost in this movie. And I'm fine with this. I think that Domhnall Gleeson does the comedy very well. It felt natural to the character to get to this point because he was never going to be leader of the First Order. Like, it was that he thinks he is, and that's what's great about him.
You have to remember, he gave the command to kill off 5 planets in The Force Awakens. He is a massive mass murderer and has probably killed more people than Kylo Ren has. He feels like he should have that power, but he knows that if he went in a face-to-face fight with Kylo Ren, he's not going to win it. Hence why I think in the next film, Hux is definitely going to betray Kylo Ren as a power grab. I think it's going to happen.
He's going to die in the next movie, unquestionably.
Oh, no, he's dying in the next movie, but I think he's going to die to the hands of Kylo Ren as a power grab.
Mm-hmm.
This was Rian Johnson doing episode 9. He'd die in the opening crawl.
Yeah.
In fact, I have some big predictions for episode 9, which I will keep to the end, I reckon.
We'll get to the end with our thoughts on episode 9 and how we hope that it's not going to be Star Wars episode 9 event like Revenge of the Younglings or something.
Revenge of the Younglings.
Title confirmed.
No, it's a Younglings. It's a Younglings Very Merry Christmas, Chris.
Is this the spiritual successor to the holiday special?
Too young, too furious.
There, you said hooks to drag it back to Star Wars.
Yes, we're getting off point.
You said Hooks handles the comedy well. I think there's one moment where he doesn't.
Oh yeah,
and that would be right at the opening. In fact,
the first joke of the movie.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
Oh Christ!
So we have.
I think this was the first point in our viewing where I just sat back and went, "Oh, fuck off."
Context for everyone. When I go and see a film with James, like we're pretty much very cynical on the same kind of movies and pick out the same problem areas. James always has a tell when he's not liking a movie. He will sit back in his chair, go, and kind of turn to me in a desperate attempt. Not 5 minutes into this movie, that happened with this moment. I think I audibly groaned the first time I saw this movie at the midnight screening, and I thought, this is a doomed omen of what's about to transpire for the next 2.5 hours.
But Chris, he was stalling for time for no apparent reason.
It was like a Family Guy joke. A Family Guy joke is a descriptor I use for a joke that keeps going on and on.
Blue Harvest did fly through my mind when that scene played out.
Yeah. And as I said, second audience, you could have heard a pin drop. It was like scattered cough throughout the audience.
Oh, they were my people. I loved them. They were complete. So it was a particularly good joke, though.
Yeah,
it was. What was the setting? Oh, of course. So Poe's flown up in his X-wing, makes contact with the destroyer. Apparently, just cell calls, just on his mobile, just gets in touch with Hooks. Apparently to deliver a message from Leia. Hooks has a wonderfully over-the-top speech. Sorry, I'm still holding for General Hooks.
I think the thing that people hate most about that scene is that it's 21st century lingo.
Yes, that's another thing. The jokes felt very modern in this.
It's something quite funny that I noticed back when watching The Force Awakens in the cinema. And they say, like, oh, it uses the power of the sun to power Starkiller Base. I'm just thinking, hold on a second. It's not called the sun, you prick. It's called a star.
I think for that, they should have just had solar panels. That's the power of the sun.
Well, the entire planet is just so... Do you know what? Then the First Order is relatable. And you could easily say that the radical terrorists on the other side, who are the resistance, and this radicalized government that is trying to take over the main empire that has been established through a vote in the Republic, is in fact wrong.
Democratic, but they don't care about the environments, the bastards.
Yes.
Can we have like the ending of Phantom Menace, like the solar panels have been destroyed? Look, and then they're just pushing vehicles over and shit. So they then unleash They release the Dreadnought, which is a new ship, which is actually pretty cool. Until it's immediately nerfed down within the first few seconds. You see it, it's imposing. Everyone kind of went like, "Woo!" Like this is.
It would have been so much better if they'd lost that fight hard.
Yeah,
because it would have set the tone for the film as well. That this isn't a film where you're going to win.
Exactly, and Poe just kind of flies over the entire thing, takes out all of its guns with one X-wing, like 2 shots, boom, 2 shots.
He is meant to be the best pilot, and I have to say that sequence of him taking down all of the guns and the camera work that was done in that scene was pretty cool. Like the shot where he swings it around and then goes back.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was awesome.
I can't fault the cinematography in this film or the camera or anything like that. All the action is perfectly framed. It's not shaky or anything, but it's just when you introduce a new threat, I mean, it's just a simple question of tension building in the film. If you introduce something as a threat and then just immediately show that it isn't a threat because you can just take it down instantly.
But Chris, he was too close for the guns to shoot him.
Oh, that's a great design. Speaking of great design, so the resistant bombers come in, which are going to blow this dreadnought up because Leia's saying, you know, Poe, pull your men out of there. We've done all we can. We need to save as many people as we can, but he's hot-headed, which kind of sets the stage for his character in this movie, and he wants to press the assault, and he wants to take down this dreadnought because apparently they're quite difficult to take down. So the bombers come in. And I think, what is it, like a TIE fighter crashes into one and then debris from that flies into another one and another one. And it's like an epic combo of explosions which just immediately take out the bombers. These are like the worst designed ships in the galaxy. It's almost like the Hindenburg explosion.
That TIE fighter dude must be like a hero. Like he sacrificed his life and took down half the fucking fleet.
It's a triple kill. Like,
it's a good thing that not only one bomber survived, and not only did the at the last second did the detonator fall just into the hands of our heroic rebellion.
Can we talk about how overdramatic that was? Like it's slow-mo fall.
I'm sorry. Okay, here's the thing.
To, like grab it.
Look. Rogue One, I love that film. I think it's the closest we've come to having a film like the original trilogy.
A good Star Wars movie since 1983.
Yeah.
Okay, but there is one thing that the film opened out to, and that's people, I would say, believing in the Force. And not being Force users themselves, but because they believe in the Force, they're able to pull off miraculous things over a short period of time.
In fairness, is that not just continuing like a theme from Rogue One?
I know, but I didn't like the fact that they opened up that theme. I thought it was stupid, and it didn't really play into the whole universe of you have some Force users and some not. It basically said, oh, anyone can be a Force user.
I mean, Yoda does say the Force surrounds and binds us. It's like it affects every living thing. Yeah. It's just been made more apparent.
If you've got a high midichlorian count, we're missing that very specific detail.
That's true. That's it. There was no midichlorians. This film's the worst.
See, here's the thing. No, there was. They were flowing all the way throughout that bomber because Rose 1.0 goes and like calls upon the Force, basically prays to Jesus, and look, the detonator's falling in my hands. Now all the bombs are going to fly out. I'm going to die. I'm not going to lie. When I was in the cinema, I just thought, oh, they've killed off that new girl. Oh, that's good. I don't have to worry about her anymore. And then like 10 minutes later, it's like, for fuck's sake, there's another one.
I worry we're a little bit too cynical.
We've still got 5 viewers right now. I'm really surprised about this myself at this point.
I swear to God, it was a good film.
It's okay. People like this movie. We're allowed to be hateful.
Okay, if we say this movie's good and then rip it to pieces, is that okay?
That's all right.
Damn it, that's what we were missing out on in past videos. It's okay if you say it's good at the start. Also, this is like, we're still hung up on like the first scene. This is going to be a long video, folks. This is probably going to be longer than I expected. Has anyone seen the movie?
Longer than the film, mate.
That's not a good thing. Has anyone seen the movie Twister, the 90s disaster movie with it Bill Paxton? They have those little detonator things, those little trackers they send out into the
Yes, they do, yeah.
They reminded me of the things from this movie, the thermal detonators that come out, just like really briefly. Anyone? Oh, I forgot Twister's a movie from the 90s. No one will have seen it.
Hey, guess what? Guess what? Rose 1.0 dropped the ball on the First Order.
We've just had a comment. We've just had a comment. Go on, sorry, Tate.
That is the theme of the humor in this film, by the way.
Yeah. We just had a comment saying this review is far more entertaining than the movie was. Oh, thank you very much. We do our best.
Okay, let's move on to them deciding to run away like
Can I just... We've had one comment, which might be my favourite comment so far. You guys are great. It's cathartic listening to someone else make light of all the reasons I was rolling my eyes watching this travesty. Damn, I don't even think we've been that harsh.
Are we not cynical enough, guys?
No, we need to dial it up.
We could try drama in a Star Wars film. Bastards.
Okay, so they
Can we do a sub-channel
yeah.
called Cynical Cinema? Like, can we just do that?
Oh, yeah. No, it's Cinema Savage. Everyone knows it.
Oh, that's all.
Hashtag.
Hashtag Cinema Savage.
Okay, we should continue the plot.
They fly away like the little bitches they are, and then the First Order track them through hyperspace. But whilst they're in hyperspace, Finn wakes up in what can only be described as bubble wrap filled with water all over his body, and he's leaking all over the place whilst naked on the ship.
What do you mean?
That's the level of comedy.
Finn
That's the
naked
level of comedy we're
leaking?
looking. So for all you ladies out there who wants to see Finn with water coming out of him, leaking all over the floor whilst half naked on a starship, then this is your dream film.
At least they've upgraded from the diaper tank that Luke was in.
Yes.
Now you can walk in it.
Diapers were so 1980.
It's a mobile diaper tank.
We just do it straight up naked now.
Oh, this is just episode 5 all over again.
Because Chris, didn't you say before you went in to the cinema, I really hope it isn't exactly the same as episode 5? They basically just flipped episode 5 on its head.
Yeah, pretty much.
Where are we ending? Oh, we're ending on a planet that looks like it's got snow on it. Oh, great.
It's so refreshing to hear you come around to my line of thinking now, Tate. It's only took you 2 years. I will say for the folks watching at home, we do have a plan. We just probably won't stick to it all that much. Like, this point that I've got on the plan is Finn wakes up in comedy water mattress jacket. Like, I don't know. It probably has a name. It probably has a serial number. It's probably in that new visual guide.
Hold on. What brand do you reckon he's wearing?
Brand?
Yeah, what brand?
On Wikipedia.
Can you buy that in stores?
Probably. It kind of looks like, you know, in Back to the Future 2, like the really weird fashion statements. It kind of looks like something like that. Okay, can we get away from the abysmal stuff? So yes. Finn says, "Where's Rey?" We then cut to pretty much directly where the other one left off, and I will say that this is the first time in Star Wars history where the following episode has pretty much picked up right after the last one left off. But we knew that anyway. They announced that.
Rogue One.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Now with the spin-off movies, that's true.
Like I said,
that's pretty retroactive.
Yeah.
She gives the lightsaber to Luke.
Yes.
And he takes it and goes on a roaring rampage of revenge across the galaxy. It's exactly what we wanted to see. Or potentially he just chucks it over his shoulder.
I hated this.
Very funny.
I hated this so much, guys. And everyone laughed, and I hated everyone in the cinema for a split second until they kept laughing at every unfunny joke.
Yes, so it was
Luke
as far as comedy is concerned, it subverted the narrative into a way that you would not expect it to be. Therefore, you laugh.
I mean, if I can be serious, shock horror, the whole point of it is obviously it's setting up the big thematic thing where it's rejecting stuff from the previous films. You know, it's the first of the big thing where JJ goes, "Oh, he's going to give her the lights. She's going to give him the lightsaber. It's going to be a big thing." And Luke goes, "No," because Rian Johnson hates Star Wars, presumably.
Here's the thing. I've already started to come up with a couple of fixes to this film. And one of the first ones that I would do, apart from the opening sequence, I would change it, a lot of that. I would have Luke just, instead of, he'd look at the lightsaber, he'd look at Rey, and he would either pass the lightsaber back to her, like into her chest, and kind of push her back and walk away, or he would just drop it on the floor. Not throw over the shoulder, drop it on the floor. Because that holds more weight to it than throwing it over the shoulder. Throwing it over the shoulder sets the tone that, like, he is now a comic relief character, and he's never been a comic relief character. He's always been the hero character. I can't think of a single scene at this moment in time where he has been part of the joke. It's always been Leia and Han who have been part of the joke.
Well, he's got to go to the Toshi station to pick up some power converters, Tate. That was more delivery. That was more over time. I'll grant you that one.
I agree with you, Tate. Like, I think what's missing from that is a sense of like emotional investment in it. He doesn't have any feeling on the lightsaber. He just cans it. It's a bit of a shame.
I mean, technically, it was he only used it for like 1 film, 2 films.
That's true. It's not his. He should have gone. This is not mine.
Yeah, where's his green lightsaber?
It's fine. It's not mine. I didn't pay for it.
So a lot.
I got given it.
Okay, well, I'll get to where is the green lightsaber. I'll get to what happens to the lightsabers at the end of the film.
We're forgetting though, we get introduced to some new, certainly the biggest merchandising pull here. So not only does he throw the lightsaber over his shoulder, we see it land, and we get our first introduction to the Porgs, the bird-like inhabitants of this island that start pecking it and sort of like trying to fly off with it. Because
I would have laughed so hard if the lightsaber turned on and just speared a Porg.
We do see a cooked Porg in this movie, so it wouldn't have been out of keeping with the
that
tone.
was okay. No, I have to admit that was the funniest moment of the movie, and I'm happy to say that I did laugh, and I would keep that in either way. And I also have to say, I like the Porgs. They weren't overused. They were cute. They worked. They had a purpose in the film, because there's always background Star Wars aliens and things that sometimes have interactions, sometimes don't. But the Porgs feel like a part of the universe, even though they've only been in barely any time in the film. They were in it for maybe 5 minutes or less.
They probably still get more screen time than Captain Phasma, but that's an entire different topic for later in the review.
Like, they felt like they had character to them without saying a single word, and that's what all of the characters that don't speak in Star Wars have always had. That's something along the lines of R2-D2, who doesn't speak a word, but you understand everything he says, and same with Chewie. Like, with the Porgs, you understood everything that they were doing, and that is brilliant. We like that. That's something that you can use that for the new generation of Star Wars fans. I mean, you've got a new character who doesn't speak, who you can connect with, and there are loads of them, so it works out really well.
Collect the whole set.
I'm just waiting for us to get our first Jedi Porg. That's what I'm after.
Oh, Darth Porgius.
Oh, he's going to be a Darth. Nice. I like it.
It's supremely the Porg.
Cute, oh yeah.
Everyone,
cute, and I like the fact that they were physical. They're actual models.
Yeah. Everyone needs to sit down and bow down to Supreme League of Porg.
They kind of reminded me of, especially when we get them later in the film, when like one's sort of like ripping apart the innards of the Millennium Falcon, it's all tangled in the wires and stuff. It reminded me of the Gremlins. I really got a big Gremlins vibe from that, although very slight. I did get that. Maybe like the whole gizmo thing, like the cutesy puppet animal thing. I didn't mind them. I honestly thought they were going to be in the movie a lot more. I thought they were going to cut to them every opportunity they could, which they sort of did, but it still felt restrained. And honestly, it wasn't the worst comedy in the entire movie. So I didn't mind the Porgs. For what they are, they're fine. When they were announced and like pictures came out and the merchandise, and everyone thought they were going to be the new Ewoks, because there are elements of Return of the Jedi in this film as well as there being elements of Empire Strikes Back. So I thought, oh, there's going to be like a huge resistance of Porgs at the end, and they're going to save the day. I was expecting like a moment where Rey was like pinned down by like Snoke or Kylo Ren or something, and she was trying to reach for the lightsaber, and then a Porg was just going to like nudge it along to her and like save the day at the last.
Did you not know, Chris? Porgs are they don't actually have any biological matter. They're 100% midichlorian.
that's actually what midichlorians are. When he says he's got over 20,000, Anakin just brimming with Porgs.
When you cut off his arm, you have an edit where Porgs just kind of crawl out.
Like the scarabs in the Mummy.
Yes. Oh god, that's grotesque. One comes out like the alien chest burster from Alien. It's a Porg. Can someone please do that now? Who's much more well versed in After Effects than I am? Just go into like old classic movies and add Porgs in. Go to like Casablanca or something. Have like a Porg at the bar.
I was watching Breakfast at Tiffany's earlier. I want a Porg in that film.
Oh god, what have we started?
Create a monster.
What have I become?
We may have gone too far in a few places. Right, should we get back to the plot?
Okay, no, let's get back to Luke milking space tits.
Oh, hashtag space tits. They're in this movie now.
Yep. And I think it should have been a trailer shot where he just takes that drink and goes,
Got milk?
Actually, I want to do that. So when this movie eventually comes out on Blu-ray, I want to like take this movie and like edit another trailer in the same tone as the ones that came out for the movie, like really dark and dramatic, and fill it with all the crap, like Canto Bight, the space tits, everything.
For all the like the criticism that's been made to defend this, I'd like to see the defense of the green milk space tits scene.
Can you just? I wonder if the whole like behind the scenes process was the same as George Lucas. You know how George Lucas had like the little marquettes made, and he kind of examined them. Like
these tits are key to all this.
No, like they did one with like 2, and he went like, no, add another 2 onto them. We want 4 on this.
I want to just go ahead and say that the way that CGI works, you've got to put the image over the top. Luke still had to squeeze something, because there was probably a tit that he squeezed on set.
Yeah, you could see that was physical.
You know, you've made it as an actor, right? In a movie where you've just got like a giant baby's bottle and you're just pressing it to a giant teat.
No, you know you've made it in a movie where you're milking something by pressing down on a teat. What can is it a PG or is it a 12?
It's 12A. It's 12A.
12A. That's why.
Which is like the new you anyway.
Yeah. I got it. It's symbolic of what Disney are doing to the franchise. They're milking it.
And look, it's green milk. Look at all that green milk that's coming out.
I will say though, like, do you think there's ever going to come a time where they start releasing like the really obscure action figures of things from this movie, and you have Luke and Walrus with tits?
Oh no. Okay, let's move on to him boss fishing.
Yeah. I will say though, like space tits aside, like I did like how they showed us how Luke would have survived on that island. I don't know if we needed to go as far as space walruses with giant mammary glands, but we did anyway. They're in Star Wars now; it's canon. I did like the fishing. I thought that was cool though. We did have a message saying I was totally down with the space tits, but seriously, how long did it take him to pull up his harpoon pole vault to get that fish?
Well, it's not a very efficient method of fishing.
Oh, it's terrible.
You could have a pole works quite well.
Or you just throw a net down with a piece of rope attached to it.
Yeah.
Like,
Sheila's put that it might have been back to the milk, throwback to the blue milk from A New Hope, and someone's put no wonder Mark Hamill has somewhat traumatized look on his face every The Last Jedi interview.
I mean, yeah, obviously it's a throwback to it. It's just, it's like, you know, in the special editions, there wasn't a scene where like Beru goes out and she's suddenly just like, right, hang on, Luke, before you get to blue milk.
I want to just point out, you know where the dark hole is? That's pretty close to the water. Why didn't he just go fishing there?
He's scared of it. Never went near it, did he?
Okay, another question.
Makes sense.
Another question. Why
it's
didn't
like someone planned it ahead of time?
I mean,
sorry, Tayte.
He's on an island in a planet in the middle of nowhere, and the planet's in the middle of nowhere. Why didn't he just have a boat where he could just go and fish?
Yeah, or like a space butler.
He's a pilot. He can't do boats.
We can't make him too much of a Mary Sue.
We can't call him Captain Luke Skywalker.
That'd be way better. Captain Skywalker.
Captain Master Skywalker. Right, I need to talk about this. So, Rey's like opening line in this movie is Master Skywalker, which she says in like a pseudo Cockney accent. Did anyone else get flashbacks?
There's too many of them. What do we do?
Right. Did anyone else get flashbacks to the little youngling from Revenge of the Sith, or was that just...
yes.
That's not a good thing.
That's
It'd be so funny.
Rey in episode 3.
Oh my god, I want an edit. Master Skywalker, what should we do? Luke just pulls out lightsaber.
We've just had a comment from OMB saying, "Wait, I'm confused. Do any of you like the movie?"
Yeah,
yeah, we like the movie.
It's fine. It's fine. But it's fun to tear it down.
Okay.
The point is, this is not the good bit of the movie, is it? This is the first hour.
We haven't even got past the first 20 minutes.
No, what's the point? It's like it's a slow burn.
Yeah.
And the thing is with the Rey and Luke sections is it starts kind of crappy and it gets better and then it drops again because you've got Canto Bight and then it builds back up again because you've got Rey and Ren and then it drops again because
it's a very uneven film.
Because you've got to watch Poe just doing nothing, and then it gets back up again and by that point you've reached the last hour, and it's finally a really, really quite exciting film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like the last hour is fantastic. It's just that before that, you know, to coin a phrase, you've got to milk the space tits, mate. You've got to get there.
that's going to be our like like in kids shows they had like a motto at the end, like that's going to be the thing, is it? Remember to milk the space tits. Like, just remember that. The thing is, like, we all at least thought this movie was passable. We all thought it was okay. For me, it was a very standard movie. It was an enjoyable movie. It's a solid watch, but it is nonetheless flawed. It's very, very flawed, and we're just having fun pointing out every single flaw in this movie that we had.
Okay, let's just move on, because I feel like we've spent almost an hour just on the first 30 minutes of the movie, which at this rate we'd be done in about 2 hours' time.
Please progress.
Okay, the 3 lessons. So Luke's just like, yeah, sure, fine. I'll teach you, but I'll teach you in the most awkward way possible by not teaching you. Shock.
I mean, the point of the whole scene is like, it's that trying to... It's trying to set up that the Jedi were like this really holistic and hubristic, kind of useless group, and so she has to sort of unlearn it. I don't know. This is, I think, where the film starts to really get good, though, because you've got Daisy Ridley starts to find her feet a little bit and starts to feel her way into the character. Mark Hamill steals the show as a really grumpy old miserable bastard.
I think everyone was thinking when Rey started with the whole small little rocks thing. And it was starting to go when she was thinking about the light. It was starting to go when she was thinking about the middle. And then as soon as she thought about the dark, wow.
Yeah.
Just it shows how much more powerful the dark side is than the light.
It's the first really powerful scene in the movie, yeah.
And I have to say, like, her going straight to the dark place and her going for those kind of answers, that is impactful. I think everyone was thinking before this film came out that Rey was going to go to the dark side and Kylo was going to come back to the light. And there is a scene in this film where they could have very easily swapped over. And even though Kylo Ren's changed his kind of view on how to run things in that one scene, I think they have just gone to the complete polar opposites of what we expected. Rey has gone from the super dark in this film at the very start to the super light at the very end of this film. And Kylo Ren, when he starts to interact with Rey, it's good. This was something which I really like that they introduced. I think this is probably one of the best things, in fact, that they introduced into this film. The fact that now Kylo Ren and Rey has that sort of connection where they can talk to each other and they can discuss things and they can sense each other's force and stuff like that.
And touch tips.
Yeah. Have either of you guys played Knights of the Old Republic 2? I mentioned it a bit earlier.
No.
This is one of the things that has been cribbed from that game. Seem to be doing is taking bits from the old EU and bringing it in. The force bond between Rey and Ren, like you said, it's really, really well done. The interaction they have is fantastically well done. It is where, like I said, it's where Ridley starts to get her feet in as the character, because and it's just a really good trick, like editing trick. You know what I mean? For how to build the movie, because otherwise they can't interact at all.
And I liked it as well because it was very foreboding that Rey could see Kylo's surroundings, but his vision of hers were very obscured. But you could sense that like Luke was there in the background, and it really played on your senses of what they could see and what they couldn't. I thought it was really. I know a lot of people have actually come down on that. Dave, for example, on the spoiler-free review, hated that they'd introduced that, but if it just kept flashing back from person to person, which they do in this movie, I think it's in the Leia and Kylo scene before the cockpit explosion. It does that slight crossfade between the two characters to show the somewhat of a force connection. Yeah. It's just a more interesting visual way of doing it. If you just kept cutting between the different surroundings, that's not cinematically interesting, really. We've had someone saying what we thought about the revelation that Han died when Luke hears about that. Someone's written, Luke barely reacted to the revelation that Han was dead. Like, the only one in the whole cast who reacted to Han's death were Chewie and Rey, who knew Han for like 8 minutes. Well, Chewie knew him a lot longer than that, but I guess he means Rey. I think there was a missed opportunity there to have some... Because all my favourite scenes, even in Force Awakens, are just all the stuff with the original cast. In an ideal world, and it would have never have happened, these new films should have just focused on those same characters. Introduce some new characters, obviously, but continue their stories, continue their relationships, because it feels like, I mean, Luke's gone, Han's gone in the other movie, and unfortunately Carrie Fisher died in real life, so our opportunity to get all of these characters together in the same room on the big screens now forever it's gone. The moment's passed. And it feels like, I know I'm getting on what I did with Force Awakens, but it's a shame because these movies have, I know some people would argue with me that they're not a complete retread, but it seems like they've segued as much as they can to the original status quo that was established in the original trilogy. And it's following the same path. Like, it almost makes the original trilogy feel pointless now because 30 years later, it's just going to revert to exactly the same scenario. You know?
I still feel like the point of this film, though, was acknowledging that was what Force Awakens did and then changing it in as big a sweep as possible. You know, so it's why we've got, like, Snoke is set up to be the big Palpatine thing and he's off 2/3 of the way through the movie. Spoiler.
It's more so for where the Resistance find themselves at the end of the movie. Like, they're pretty much end in exactly the same place that they started in this film, and it kind of leaves them in the same spot as they were going into Return of the Jedi. Like, it feels like it's just gearing up for the same thing, although it's changed a lot of things, and this wasn't as close to Empire as I thought it was going to be in terms of the general thematic journey of, like, where the bad guys are at the end of the movie, where the good guys are. It feels the same.
Okay.
I don't know. It just feels like a lot of nothing happens in this movie. Big things happen, but ultimately, it feels like it takes 2 steps forward and then 1 step back.
So, we kind of skipped over a couple of things, like R2 showing the clip of Leia, which was a nice callback, but I feel like...
Yeah, whatever.
I like that.
Yeah, whatever. It was nice, but whatever.
Luke acknowledges that it's cheap. He goes, that was a cheap move, so I guess that's a kind of...
We started to have flashbacks towards the Jedi Temple.
I would have liked a lot more of that, in all honesty. Now, when we got Force Awakens, we get that Rey vision, and it was gearing up for a lot of things like, oh, these are things you're going to expect to see in the sequels, and we get this great look at the sacking of the Jedi Temple. Beautiful shot when Luke falls to his knees, and you've just got the devastated landscape in the background. Also, the thing about Rey's lightsaber with Maz Kanata, I guess we can get onto that in a minute, but that's a question that doesn't get answered and now probably won't get answered. I would have liked to have seen more of that flashback. Yeah. The stuff that we do get is really interesting, but for example, the Knights of Ren that were established, who were Kylo Ren's followers, who joined him.
We still don't know if they're the Praetorian Guards or not.
I don't think they are. I honestly don't think they are. I think if they do bring them in, they'll gear up. We'll get into our predictions for 9, but Kylo Ren with the Knights of Ren, with Rey, with this new Order of Jedi, I think that's pretty much how it's going to go.
I think Rey's going to try and take all of them on, and it's going to be epic as hell. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be a 1 versus like 7 lightsaber fight.
I would agree. That'll probably be what happens. There's one thing I wanted to touch on with Rey. In your notes, you've talked a little bit about her training at Dark Place. I thought it was really interesting that the when she goes into that dark place, the thing that Luke's most afraid of in it and that she can confront is a mirror. I think that's it's like a nice little sort of, not subtle, but easily missed sort of point that's sort of hammered home by a later scene in the film, that what Luke's most afraid of is kind of that reflection of himself, that idea that he hasn't done anything with his life. And I think it's...
Yeah, I want to go ahead and say that's not Rey's dark place, that's Luke's dark place.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But
I agree with you on that.
I just like the point that I just like the idea that whole point is that what Luke's most afraid of is self-reflection. And I don't know, maybe maybe you could take it as a point on fandom, why people got really pissed off at this film, because it didn't meet what expectations they wanted. But it's not really, there's a lot of rules that people have applied to the film that aren't really rules, because it's a made-up space fantasy, mate. Do you know what I mean?
It's a made-up space opera with space wizards. Ultimately,
it's space magic. It's space magic. Yeah. George Lucas says it's space science, but it's actually space magic.
I don't know where this revelation came out, but I actually did a physical fist pump in the air when they said that Rey's parents were nobodies.
Ooh, that's jumping later on, but we may as well talk about it.
Okay, got it. Because I called that. I fucking called that from almost the very start. I said Rey's parents will either be nobodies or they will be people in Luke's Jedi Academy who were nobody themselves. And I am so happy because of that. We finally have a character who isn't tied down to the Skywalker name or who isn't from a long line of Jedis. This is a new Force wielder, and I like that.
I think even better, the only Skywalker in the film is a complete mass murdering bastard. It's only Kylo Ren. I know he's not a Skywalker, but you know what I mean. He is. because he's Ben Solo. Well, bollocks, there's that. The point is, the only Skywalker we have is a git. So,
Yeah.
it is that kind of like spitting in the face of the old trilogy. That's where it's different. It's different for the arc it takes its characters in, rather than the arc it takes its sort of setting in. So yes, it ends with the rebellion. It's like 6 people against the First Order, and it's basically where Jedi starts. But its evolution comes in its characters and the arcs it takes them on. And I don't know. I think that's kind of why it's an interesting film, if not necessarily a great one.
The whole revelation with Rey's parents was actually one that I liked, and we were. It seems like George said this. It was like, you take your Snoke theory and throw it aside. You take your Rey's parents theory and throw it aside, and that is what it felt like. This one I didn't have a problem with, and I'm glad, because not everything has to be so tightly knit to a Skywalker family tree. It doesn't, and it's nice that we're getting to this stage now with these films, and probably eventually when we do get to episodes 10, 11, 12, maybe it'll be new characters, maybe it'll continue with these ones, that now the possibilities are open to other people, and not just because you've got Skywalker blood in you. So I did like that. But gearing up to that part, I was kind of worried. Jumping ahead now, we'll cycle back to it in a minute, but where Kylo Ren says, like, join me, Rey, and together we can rule. And I was like, oh,
but here's the thing.
And then they hit it right up with a parent revelation after that. I was like, this is getting into bad territory now. But then they did that, and I liked it for being...
I have my own opinions on that when we get round to it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that may have been misinterpreted either by myself or by everyone, maybe. What it was misinterpreted, what it was meant to be. Let's move on to Finn and Rose 2.0. Yay.
Are we going to talk about a little green fellow?
Yeah.
What? No, that happens after the Finn and Rose thing.
Okay. I was grouping storylines together to make it more streamlined, but okay. That's fine.
We'll come back to that. Talk about Finn and Rose. Let's do the Kylo Ren bit and then get back to Canto Bight.
Okay.
It's Finn and Rose is basically...
Okay, so Kylo Ren had his attack on Leia's ship. He chooses not to shoot, as everyone predicted from the first trailer, and she still gets killed. And it wouldn't have been the best way of sending her off, but I would have been okay with it. I was at peace with it. And then the fingers started to move, and I thought, oh no, please no. And then, oh God, her eyes are opening. Oh God, what the fuck is she doing? Oh no, what the fuck is happening? What is she doing? Why has she gone Superman mode? Why on earth is she becoming Mary Poppins in space? Why is she doing that Star-Lord thing in Guardians of the Galaxy whilst he's wearing a jetpack? What is happening? Oh my God, why?
Please stop.
There is one very simple fix to this scene. Are you ready for this?
Go on.
Don't have her being the one, like, forcing her way with the Force back into the airlock area. Get Kylo Ren to do it. Get Kylo Ren to force push her towards the airlock. It shows that he still cares about her, yet at the same time, he is still on the dark side of the Force, and the only person who could make him turn is probably going to be Leia.
Yeah.
That's the scene fixed right there. You don't have to have Leia being the one doing it. You just have Kylo Ren just go.
And with Leia as well, like, I know they've got to like do escalation with these films and stuff, but Leia was always Force sensitive. We always knew that, but I liked it when it was more subdued, when it was just feelings, when it was just sort of premonitions. We did no chance to see her using the Force flying through space. Now, what was going through my head in this scene was because that was one of my most anticipated parts actually from the trailer, was when is Kylo going to do it? We thought that maybe they matched up 2 different shots, that they wouldn't take place at the same time. We find out they actually did. When he chooses not to, and then like the sound kind of cuts out, the music cuts out, you just hear like the low thud of the torpedoes hitting and her flying out into space. I actually said to you, I went like, oh shit, like they did it. And then I thought maybe they had got in, maybe they had removed some footage and to give her character somewhat of a send-off and, you know, a closure in the movie. And I thought it was hard hitting. I thought it was a ballsy move. I really respected them for doing that. And then when it got to the Force scene, well, actually, when the camera sort of like slowly started panning into her and it played like a piano variation of the Princess Leia theme, and she looked like she was completely CGI in that scene. I thought that was a scene they'd added in post Carrie Fisher's death. I thought they were just going to sort of like linger on her for a while in space. It was going to be like, this is a final send off to the princess, that kind of thing. And then it continued, and I was really confused. I didn't know whether they'd got in post and done this, but clearly they had more footage. This was still all part of the plan. I didn't need to see her flying through space like that. I think Dave said like they could have sent out a crew together, or even as you said, Tate, like have Kylo Ren do it. Have something. You didn't need that scene where she was, or don't have her blasted out into space at all. Keep her on the ship, have someone else blown out into space and like completely wreck the ship, but have her be knocked unconscious or something and then in a coma, which is where she is after this scene anyway.
Can we just say rest in peace, Admiral Akbar, killed off screen?
Oh, James, you have something to say about that.
The film. The only reason I don't like the film, Akbar gets killed off screen. Best character in the series. Fuck you,
and there is a massive fix, which we will talk about later, to this film.
Oh, can I just
would have made it amazing?
Yeah, sorry, go on. Oh, I was just gonna say, can I weigh in on the Leia scene since you guys have slagged it off?
Go for it.
It's great. Fuck you both. It's great. I like it. I would have been quite happy if she died, because it's a really neat way of. This is going to sound horrible. It's a neat way of writing Carrie Fisher out of the films. They're going to have a struggle doing it in episode 9. But surviving in a vacuum. Plo Koon does it in Clone Wars. Luke does it in Hand of Thrawn. It's totally fine for the Force to do that. Leia's Force sensitive. I think it's fucking great that we finally see her do something useful with the Force. You go like, oh, I like it. It's feelings. Nah, fuck that, man. I would have been happier if she'd have ended this film by pulling a lightsaber out and shoving it down someone's face. I'm quite happy she got to use the Force, even if it was just in a way of pulling herself back in the ship. She's a Jedi. Fuck it. She's great. I like that.
That would have been great if we'd have seen her in a bubble. But how does she survive the crushing pressure of space and freezing temperatures? That's
been done. I just get like Plo Koon does it. Luke does it. It is genuinely a thing. It's space magic. Why does it matter what space is? Physics don't matter when you are a space wizard.
And I guess that's what we need to keep
space magic.
It's about space magic, space wizards, and little cuddly teddy bears. It's fine.
You are not going to go. Oh, by the way, here's Leia dying of decompression.
Wow.
Moving swiftly on.
Am I wrong?
Okay, what are we moving on to? Are we moving on to
I guess no, so we're introduced to our new sort of leader of the Resistance now with Admiral Holdo, played by Laura Dern, with purple hair for some reason. Why the purple hair? Because it looks Star Warsy? I don't really know.
Because she is distinguished from the only other 3 female characters in the entire Star Wars universe.
Yeah. Many Mon Calamari died to bring us this information. She was kind of a lot like that. But we're introduced to this character, and she comes across as incompetent, like she's leading the Resistance down the toilet. She might be a traitor, self-sabotaging, whatever. Ultimately, sort of like where her character leads. Well, she has a very bad relationship with Poe Dameron. Like, you can kind of tell that he wants to vie for command. He has a mutiny against her. He doesn't like her leadership. But ultimately, her plan is to get them all to safety, and her character kind of comes around at the end, and it's sort of another one of those Rian Johnson changing perceptions of that character.
It's not that a character comes around, it's that the film on the Rebel flagship is done from Poe's perspective. We only see Holdo from his perspective. So it's why we see her as so sort of negative. Because the whole point of like the sections of Poe's parts of the film is to break him as a character. Because in the next film, he's got to be a leading general, and because Leia's gone, Holdo's gone, Akbar will never really be gone, but in reality, he's gone. He lives on within us, Chris. He'll be a Force ghost.
I'd love Force Ghost Admiral Akbar. But with Holdo, like, I just don't know. For the sake of like a film and a twist, I get why we don't know. But her plan is to get them all to safety. Why wouldn't she share that information? She never sees Poe as a traitor. She just sees him as someone who's a bit hot-headed and trying to get his way. Like, it just felt like a pointless twist in the movie. It, like, in terms of the character, why wouldn't she say, like, look, my plan is to get us all to safety. We just need to get a safe distance away first. That's all. That was it.
I think because she's acting on Leia's orders. Like, I know Leia's in a coma, but Leia kind of
points out
you need to
construct this ruse.
Plan. But no, when Leia comes around at the end, she points out to, or not at the end, but near the end, she points out to her that everything Holdo's done has been on the back of her plan. Leia's sort of arc in this is to make Poe a better commander.
Mm-hmm.
And while, you know, it's a pretty extreme method.
Yeah.
I don't know. I agree. She's well acted, at least. I love to hate her. But yeah, I agree it's sort of clunky. But again, there is a sort of point to it, which is more than you can say about.
Now, I have a fix for Holdo and her death, because I think...
Yeah. It's been said in the comments, actually. Someone's already posted it too.
Yep. She was a good enough character to stay in for another film, I reckon. And I think they could have developed her more if she was placed into another film. Yeah. I think she should have survived it. And I think either Leia should have taken the helm of the ship and blasted it into hyperspace, into Snoke's mega ship, or I think Admiral Akbar should have taken the helm of the ship, and someone has already posted up online saying that the people on Snoke's ship sees the ship turning around, and they say, "What's happening?" And then someone shouts, "It's a trap," and then the ship blasts through. Oh my god! That. Imagine the scenes if that was the case. Just imagine. Instead of there being silence in the cinema, there would just be cheers.
Well, that's it. Like, they missed out on these moments. You could have had these moments, the moments that fans want to see. And yes, that would have been a little bit cheesy to get
that would have been incredible, Chris.
But I know it would have been cheesy, but it would have been incredible, and I would have been absolutely okay with it. I will say though, that's my favorite piece of cinematography in the entire movie, when the ship
so good.
The ship.
I love the fact it cuts straight to silence.
Yeah,
that's so good, that shot.
Because Star Wars hasn't, like, Battlestar Galactica did a lot of this, where space was almost entirely silent, or you'd get like a few little pops and muffled explosions here. I know in reality you wouldn't get anything, but Star Wars very, you know, it has like pew 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 all the way through space and explosions and everything like that. But this really took it back to like the huge void that is space, and I really liked that. I will say it's bullshit as to why Finn and everyone on board the ship that had plot armor survived, but we'll get to that plot line later on. What else did I want to
Shall we talk about Finn?
I think we've put it off long enough now.
Let's get the we'll get onto then we'll get onto the Rey and Kylo Ren
and Yoda. We need to talk about Yoda too.
So,
but more important than that, let's go to the casino, guys.
So I was really pissed off when I found out that Rose was a twin and was still alive, because that was annoying. I did like, and I thought that it would have been better if Finn had escaped the actual ship and then he was found on Canto Bight by someone who recognized him on the ship. That could have been anyone. It could have been Poe. It could have literally pick a character who had been in the previous film who we are aware of, like Chewie or something like that. Seeing him on Canto Bight whilst he is trying to kind of hide from the First Order, brilliant. Because he's still a character who, even though he was brave towards the end of like the first film and stuff like that, he's still scared shitless. If you think about it, the only contact he's had with the First Order is only ever brought him pain. The last time he went and faced someone face to face from the First Order, they slashed his back up and he was put in a coma for between films. So really, he's still as scared as he was at the very start of The Force Awakens. And I like that character trait about him, that he is... It's not that he's a coward, it's more the fact that he's well too aware of the threat that is the First Order, and instead of choosing to stand up and fight and risk his life, he'd rather run away and settle down. And I just don't like the fact that, in contrast to his kind of slightly nervous and slightly kind of runaway personality traits, you have this Rose who is, even though she's just kind of like, she's a depressing character throughout the entire film. Let's be honest here.
I guess that's a good a descriptor as any, really.
Her first scene is her crying because her sister died. She then goes and meets her hero, who turns out to be pretty shit. She then goes on a mission where she ends up crying again because of fucking dogs being mistreated or some shit like that.
What a bastard.
She then cries again. She then cries again because she gets locked up in a prison cell. She then cries again because she's a kawaii girl who's riding on a... She's the human kind of version of Princess Mononoke. and then she cries again because she's about to be killed again because she was betrayed by someone who she really shouldn't have trusted in the first place, especially after he took her necklace, even though he gave it back to her. And then she cries again because she can't get to the ship because someone's shooting at her. And then she cries again because they make it away, but some people died or something, I don't know. And then she cries again because she like tried to save this person's like Finn's life. And then she's like, but I love you. And it's just like, oh my God, will you please get off my screen?
It's like the Ninja Sex Party song, I cry, every time she's on screen.
You see,
she is one of the worst. She is one of the worst written Star Wars characters of all time.
Agreed. I think the whole Canto Bight sequence is completely beyond saving. I really do.
Wait, there is one bit which I really liked about it, and that's the wings shot.
One, just because like there's a shot in the movie that looks like wings doesn't make the scene good. It makes it. It does make scene.
It makes that shot very good, Chris, and you know it.
Okay, but I don't care about anything else going on.
Thing is just, I mean, I get the point of Canto Bight is it's the hive of scum and villainy, but it's approached from the other end because Rian Johnson is essentially Jeremy Corbyn. He's very lefty. Wants you to show that the rich are bastards. And actually, we should all be space commies. But it is essentially the prequels without the funny jokes.
It's very much like prequels.
You want to go home and rethink your life?
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Shit, it worked.
It was more for like me. It was the writing really took a dive for that entire sequence, and it really genuinely felt like Rian Johnson had this character and went, "Fuck, I don't know what to do with him. Like, let's just send him off on a pointless side quest, which is completely pointless and doesn't really amount to anything." Just like visuals, everything. It was like the prequels in terms of the alien designs. One thing that when Force Awakens came out, and they've kind of harped on all the time, is this move towards practical effects. And they do have a lot there, but then you get some really questionable things, and like, well, why do that? The Rathtars in Force Awakens, for example. And in this, like, in terms of the equivalent of that scene from Force Awakens, that is it in this movie. You get some alien designs, which I hate to say it, even George Lucas wouldn't have okayed. You get like this like opera like thing.
Yeah, can we talk about Opera Singer Space Tits Part 2?
But like really like that thing from Special Edition Return of the Jedi when it screams in the camera in the Jabba's Palace sequence. It kind of screams into the camera. It's really just disgusting to look at and unpleasant.
Actually, I tell you what this scene is. For a movie that, they've been nicking from Episode 4 and Episode 5 and Episode 6. It's stolen straight out of The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Yes,
it is. Yeah,
yes, it is. But without Gary Oldman, which would have made it a lot better.
And Chris Tucker.
Also,
that would have been interesting. Someone's got my favorite comment right now. Charles Rutheimer says during the CGI, like the Fathiers, the horses things, right? During the CGI horse chase, Finn should have said, "Now this is horse racing."
Oh. I think
try spinning.
That's a good trick.
Kylo Ren does before he shoots the cockpit.
I think how I would have fixed this is, when they talk to Maz over the telephone orb.
Who was recording that, by the way?
Dave. They should have just had a patch him through to or have DJ Benicio del Toro's character just intercept the call and go, "I hear you need a code breaker," or something like that.
Yeah. That would work.
They just need all the point of that scene is all they need to do is get in touch with DJ.
Yeah. They completely misinterpreted what this film should have been about. This film should have been about a spy being on the ship or suspicion of a spy. Poe can't trust anyone, so he goes and immediately distrusts Holdo as the newest member of the ship, when instead it's probably someone else, and Holdo could be the person to find the spy. Or the spy goes down with the ship when it goes into light speed. They should have gone with there is a spy on the ship, and I think that spy should have been
Rose. Could it have been Rose? Could you have had Rose as
Rose would have been incredible. That would have been a brilliant twist. You wouldn't have seen
that twist coming, right? Like, in a film with loads of twists.
That would have been incredible if Rose was the spy, and I think I would have been on board with it. But no, they were talking about before the film the significance between BB-8 and BB-9E, and they barely used BB-9E. I think it would have been better if BB-9E or one of the people who communicated with BB-9E, like Rose, was the spy. That would have worked so much better.
Hang on,
or even if you're going to keep it similar to the movie, and sort of like mirror Force Awakens, maybe have Finn get in the escape pod, land on Canto Bight, and have him, like, instead of like wandering a desert wilderness, have him like do that shot where he jumps up and then is immediately arrested or something like that, thrown into a jail cell, boom, meets Benicio del Toro, or have him wander around Canto Bight and then find a janitor working around the casino who is Rose, who says, "I'm looking for a code breaker, can you help me?" She then leads him to Benicio del Toro's character. You could have done it that way and it would have felt a little bit more less pointless, I guess.
I think
Can we get
what? Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, you go first. You go first.
I was going to say, what we need is compromise. Tate, you want there to be a spy. None of us want there to be Rose, but the spy should be Rose.
Yep.
Have Benicio del Toro play Rose. Same costume. just have him there. There we go.
Is he going to be an Asian face like Hugo Weaving from Cloud Atlas?
Shit. No, we can't be doing that. That's 2017. Abort.
No, I genuinely think after saying that Rose being the spy, because there would be no reason for her to keep Finn on the ship.
Yeah.
I think keeping Finn on the ship could be kind of the first tell of why would she do that? Oh, wait, she needs them on the ship because they're all going to be caught at the same time. She doesn't want anyone getting away.
And if like
that would have fucking worked.
A big theme of this movie as well, sort of across the board, not like with Kylo Ren and Rey, I guess, even with Luke, and especially with the whole like weapons deal story going on with Finn and Rose, is the blurred line between good and evil. Like someone can work for the good side and someone can work for the bad side. So if you had Rose as the spy who turns out to be the bad guy, that would have made her sacrifice to save Finn at the end slightly more understandable to a story like that, with a narrative theme like that. If she is a bad character and has sold him out at the last minute, she comes in and saves him. Maybe I didn't like that whole thing with her saving him at the last minute, but that would have been at least tethered more to that theme.
You said just then this film was about mirroring the dark and the light. You literally have twins, one on the dark side and one on the light.
Yeah, could have done that.
We're writing a better film right here.
Yeah. This is like the writer's room right here. Also, Tate, we had a comment, Mr. Superman's friend, you talked about the BB-9E. He said BB-8 and BB-9E had a larger role, but the scene was actually cut. I actually heard earlier today there's about half hour from this movie cut. The original version came in about 3 hours, and Rian Johnson said they did a screening of it and it didn't flow right. It was too long. This is his preferred cut. Whether we'll get those on the Blu-ray, I don't know.
So let's just finally get to that scene.
Can I just say, Benicio del Toro was great.
Benicio del Toro was good. Yeah,
absolutely.
I liked his little ticks, his little quirks. You can just tell like he just had fun with the character. Like he would have bought that himself. That probably wasn't in the script.
His "Don't Join" speech, which gave him his name, was brilliant.
Yeah.
So there is
it's a shame he's underused though. That's a lot of the things in this movie. Like we'll talk about Snoke in a minute. Loved him underused. Benicio del Toro loved him underused. He should have been in it way more.
But before we talk about Snoke, let's talk Yoda. That's where we are in the film, isn't we?
Yeah.
That was a great scene.
Yeah. Can we point out the fact that Yoda said there's nothing in there which Rey does not already own, and then at the end of the film we see Finn open a drawer and there are the Jedi books. So Rey stole all the Jedi books,
guarded by the caretakers on the island, which we actually haven't talked about yet. We get like these turtle nun things, which are actually released in an Entertainment Weekly image.
We've been avoiding it, Chris.
Yeah, who gives a fuck?
Remove them. I like the idea of Luke going to a secluded island. I don't need these turtle nuns that were there before and guarded ancient Jedi books. Going back to the topic of Yoda, I loved it. I didn't know it was coming. I know for anyone who knows of this TV show in the UK, this morning presenter Holly Willoughby actually ruined this for a lot of people that tuned in. She announced that Yoda was going to be in the movie. She let out that spoiler during an interview with John Boyega. You can find that on YouTube.
He then drop kicked her.
Yes, through the screen during the interview. I loved seeing Yoda in this movie. Part of me, the completionist of me, really wanted to see like CGI Alec Guinness with the voice of Ewan McGregor there too. But when I saw Yoda there, I thought, oh no, we're doing like an Empire thing here. But even if it is going to like vaguely related to Empire, it made sense because Luke was the student in this one, and although he's technically a master in this one, he had that moment of vulnerability. He regressed almost back to a student where he didn't know what he was doing. So it makes sense for Yoda to come in that moment. It was a really nice moment. It's actually probably my favorite scene in the entire film. And Yoda's a puppet. I'm so like, there was rumors that Yoda may have been in it, and I thought, I really hope they don't do CGI. I hope they keep it to a puppet so you can continue it on from the original trilogy. Now, to me, the puppet looked slightly off in the face, and I couldn't see why. The first time I watched it, it was more noticeable than the second time I watched it, maybe because I was braced for it. I don't know if they used a different puppet. I don't know if they made a different one or made one to kind of...
Chris, when that scene first came up, Chris, you turned to me and said, "What is that?" audibly out loud.
Yeah. It was the face looked more mushed up, and it looked like a Poundland Yoda. Like,
I would suspect they've probably built it based on screens from Empire and Jedi.
mm-hmm.
It's not. It must be a new puppet.
And I liked that it was more like the original trilogy Yoda, where he's slightly kooky and he's a little bit nutty. Yeah,
yeah. I just that moment where Luke's like, "I'm going to burn it down," and Yoda's bollocks to you. The thunder comes. That is one of the best Star Wars moments.
And there's that nice moment where it's like the two of them sitting on the log together, and the camera pans back. You get the Yoda theme plays. I really like that scene. It didn't feel like a pointless shoehorning in to get his character there. It felt like it was necessary in that moment, which I really liked.
Yeah, I don't know what I was like when I was there watching that. But yeah, I was so glad for that scene.
Okay. Snoke.
Are we doing Snoke or are we doing Phasma? Is there any point in doing Phasma?
There we go. She's not in it.
Phasma, she was in the film. She died. Let's move on to Snoke.
She'll be back. She'll come back because she's essentially Boba Fett. She has no lines.
Will she come back as just all robot?
She's more machine now than woman.
Probably.
Man.
Oh no, it's J.J. Abrams doing it, so probably will. She'll probably come back with like a thing on her that says more machine than man. Because it's subtle that way.
I should have been set up for disappointment, but I was really disappointed with how they handled Phasma in this one, because the merchandise of Force Awakens, Phasma was everywhere. They were pushing Phasma. Probably second to BB-8 was the most merchandise character in that film. And she looks cool. I love Gwendolyn Christie. I love her character in Game of Thrones. I love the design of the character and the persona, everything like that. She just wasn't in the movie enough. And then she gets thrown down a trash compactor. And then she got her own spin-off comic of how she escaped that. That would have been great to get some of that information in this movie, because, as we know, it's great to have these comics and novels and stuff, but the movies count. We get no explanation how she came back in this film. And she's barely in it. She's in it a fraction of the time she is in the first movie. She shows up for a quick boss fight with Finn, and then she gets knocked into a pit of fire as the ship crumbles and explodes. And as far as we know, she's dead. Like, she will probably get out of it, as you said, and come back in 9, but it's such a waste of a character. Like, have her be like a central villain that's chasing them, pursuing them throughout the film or something like that.
I think the kicker is Rian Johnson, he can have a character that you expect something from, and turns out you don't like, and then offs them partway through, and you think that's not a waste of a character. Like Snoke. How did he not do it with Phasma? He didn't. I don't know. It's a shame she wasn't in it.
And I really liked the fight as well, because we didn't really see Phasma do much fighting, or any fighting, to be honest, in the first movie. She just sort of issued commands, and that was about it. So to see her actually go toe-to-toe with Finn was cool. I liked that in the trailer, and I was really looking forward to seeing her get more to do. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. Maybe they'll do an apology to the apology in episode 9. But at this point, it seems like episode 9 is going to be a very busy movie in and of itself with all other stuff. So I don't know if they are going to dwell on Phasma at all.
She'll be back, but she won't have a big part.
So we talked about that. I think we should just get on to the big stuff now. We should just get on to the Snoke, Kylo Ren, and racing.
I want to go ahead and say that for the little time that Snoke was in this film, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
He was a villain who actually felt menacing, who actually felt like he was a threat. And the only other villain that has ever done that is the Emperor.
Yeah.
Like, Darth Vader kind of feels like a threat sometimes, but people have been able to go toe-to-toe with him, and you know that he isn't the big bad boss. With Snoke, it's just his demeanor, the way that he acts around people, the fact that he can just flick his fingers like that and just lightning just fucking. Oh my god!
I even loved him on the hologram as well. He had such a presence, like the opening scene where Hux was walking and he just sort of like forces him to the ground and spins him. I loved that. Absolutely loved that. And Andy Serkis was great too. Playing
we don't get an explanation to who he is, which I am okay with at the moment. But I'm willing to say that. Do you think he's dead?
This is what I wanted to get on. So someone did a comment earlier, and I think it was actually revealed earlier today in an article. You know how when a film comes out, especially like a big one that's shrouded in secrecy, they have a working secret production title. Yeah. The one for episode 9 is rumored to be Black Diamond, and someone said that they think that could be pertaining to Snoke because apparently Snoke has a Black Diamond ring. I didn't see that in the film. I'd have to give it another watch and look out for that if I were to watch it again.
My God, imagine if there's a black lightsaber, a dark saber. Imagine
if they do exist. They do exist in Star Wars. We've seen them in Clone Wars. I think we've seen them in Rebels as well.
And so do yellow lightsabers, and it doesn't make them any less cancerous.
Right, with Snoke, I agree with all your points. Andy Serkis was incredible. I was a little bit hesitant, and I still kind of am that he was CGI. I think you could have achieved that look with makeup. I always go to the Orc General Gothmog from Return of the King, who's got like this all mashed up face and looks incredible. I think they could have done something like that. I'm not sure why he wears a gold robe either. I always keep comparing him to Gold Member.
Hell.
Yeah. And the scene did mirror Return of the Jedi quite a lot, but I feel, although he had a lot of similar lines to the Emperor, I think they even straight up play the Emperor's theme over one of his scenes at one point. He's got the foresight and he's got the messed up face. He's sitting in the throne room. He's surrounded by Imperial guards or Praetorian guards in this one. And he has lines like fulfill your destiny. His persona was nonetheless different. Still very arrogant, but I would say Emperor Palpatine was definitely a lot more theatrical. And felt like almost like pantomime bad guy, especially when we get to Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, here's the difference. You've got a pantomime bad guy in the shape of the Emperor, and then you've got this villain who is completely like he's
just threatening. He just is terrifying.
Now, as soon as you had a shot of the lightsaber, I immediately thought Snoke's dead here.
Yeah.
That was my immediate first. Like, no question about it. Snoke's dying here. But it was the way that he died. I thought that like Ren would like pick up the lightsaber and then they'd have to fight their way through to Snoke. But no, that was unforeseen.
It's difficult. Oh, sorry, go on, James.
I was going to say it's just another bit of that. The film's playing with the expectations. Even with the Emperor, there was a little bit of a fight with the lightning and stuff. I think it's really refreshing. I'm really glad that he died. Like, it was so. It's so good.
I see. This is a character that we needed to know more about. Like, where did this guy come from? How does he know so much about the dark side? Why does he know so much about Anakin? How is he so powerful? How did he create this entire First Order and get all these people to work for him? We never get any of this. Now, part of me, and I'm still very torn on this, part of me is glad that he didn't survive as of right now to episode 9, because if he did, then we probably would have had a Return of the Jedi retread and probably ended in the same place that we did with this movie. So it's nice that they've got it out of the way in this one.
They wanted to focus on Kylo Ren and Rey. They built up that relationship heavily in that film, and we all know that's where it's going to end. We didn't really want it ending with someone looming over Kylo Ren's shoulder and him not being the real threat, only for him to turn light and he have no other choice but to kill Snoke. This is good. And I want to go ahead and say the Praetorian Guard fight afterwards, my lord, the choreography in that. I think, Chris, this was probably one of the first moments where everyone in the cinema cheered.
Yeah.
And like everyone was clapping.
It was the back-to-back shot with Rey and Kylo when the camera pulls
back.
Lord.
Everyone just stood up and he didn't stand up, but everyone was like, ridiculous scenes. But that fight itself has to be quite high up there on the best lightsaber fights.
Well, what's interesting about this film is that, yes, lightsabers are in it, but in terms of your archetypal Star Wars duel, you really don't get one so much in this movie, which I like. It shows that you can have a somewhat passable Star Wars movie without the use of lightsabers in there all the time. The last thing I'll say about Snoke, though, and a lot of people have been talking about their Snoke theories in the comments, and the Snoke theories continue even after his death, it seems. A lot of people think he's going to come back in episode 9. Brinsley says that Snoke may have made a few clones, so he's good. Maybe they'll take from the EU where Palpatine cloned himself a bunch of times.
You mean this? You mean this one? Dark Empire.
The good EU.
Not that one. That's really badly written.
Oh yeah.
Isn't it like the whole he's Plagueis thing? Plagueis conquered death.
Well, yeah. Now this is
Plagueis.
Yeah.
Then
I think the thing is, if it were Rian Johnson or someone else directing episode 9, we wouldn't see Snoke. He won't be in it, and that's quite right. And it doesn't matter about his backstory, and it won't be there. I really worry that because Abrams is there, he will be something absolutely pathetic like Plagueis.
I
think it's nut or something.
I think it needs to be Plagueis. I really genuinely do. I think it'd be a nice way because it would tie it back into the prequels. I like when they mention Darth Sidious in this movie. I do like that connective tissue. And when I was looking at the character of Snoke and he's got that huge like cut down his forehead, I was thinking, wouldn't it have been cool if that's where Palpatine stabbed him when he said that he killed his master in his sleep? If he'd have like stabbed him in the head or something, like gouged down his head, and he's like come back, you know, he can transcend death. He keeps coming back. Maybe he's like a Ra's al Ghul kind of character where he'll keep always finding a way to come back. Maybe that will be the case after this. Maybe he's going to have robot legs in the next one. Maybe we're going to have that fight with Rey and Snoke. Who knows? I really hope that he is, because I just love to see more of his character. I love to see Andy Serkis's persona, and I think he was criminally underused in this film.
I sincerely hope he's completely dead, and I'm quite glad we didn't learn anything.
I hope.
But it means now that we're going to get the obvious Disney novel comic book series of Snoke's history, and it's like that would have been great to have seen in the movie or explored in the movie. There's a lot of unanswered questions still with these films that I hope.
Is it doesn't matter? You know,
I think it does.
What Snoke's backstory.
I honestly think it does. Well, then don't have the character there. You know, if it's like, oh, he's just like a big evil character that's done all these things that we're never going to know anything about, don't put him in the movie.
Well, the point is, he can be like that. You can have him in the movie like that, because think where Star Wars is like coming from. It's, you know, it's the old space operas and serials like Flash Gordon. You don't need a backstory for the big villain. He can just be a big villain who's enjoyable to have there, and then makes way for the important characters like Kylo Ren, like Rey. That's her name. So, so the point is,
you're glad that they've diverged from this, and I can understand that to a certain regard. But to me, a lot of these divergences just feel like wasted potential for interesting stuff to be explored in the sacrifice for familiar stuff. Now, I know you could argue that Snoke being alive is familiar stuff, but not really, because you could go into his history. You could do new things with it. You could explore his character. You could tie it into the story more, get to know him more. And I feel that's what these is going to stop this new sequel trilogy from reaching the same heights as the original trilogy, because the characters feel kind of half-assed half the time. I do like Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is getting to be a fleshed out character, as is Rey, but everyone else just sort of, standard.
I think you hit it on. You absolutely hit it on the head when we walked out of the cinema, Chris. You said that what's his face? Person who plays Kylo Ren, mind blank.
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver outacted everyone in this film.
Yeah, absolutely.
I completely agree. His performance in this film was phenomenal. And one of the interesting things was him trying to get Rey to join his cause. Now, as far as normal, join me and together we'll rule the dark side as one, he said, nope, fuck the dark side, fuck the light side. We need to find a common ground here. Like, there's always going to be people like Snoke rising up if we stay divided. Join me and we can kind of work things out in the middle. And that's not a dark side kind of thing to say. He basically spells out, if we don't join right now, I'm going to go to the extreme dark and you're probably going to go to the extreme light and there's going to be a war. He wants to avoid that. He's done with it all. He's had that connection with Rey. Now, why in the fuck did Rey refuse that? What is Rey's problem?
Here's the thing. I liked the angle they took on that, actually, and I like that Kylo Ren has reached that point where he is sort of like, I just want everything to die. He says, like, kill everything, basically. Let it all die. Which is fine right up until the ending, where he becomes Supreme Leader and becomes Darth Bad Guy again, and goes against his own words.
Here's the thing. It's exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
He basically just said, look, if we don't band together right now, someone will rise up and become a new Supreme Leader Snoke. Someone will fill that spot on the dark side because there's an imbalance. But if we come together, there won't be an imbalance.
But his plan wasn't for them to come together. His plan was to blow them all up while they were hiding.
No, his plan was like, screw the First Order, screw the Resistance, screw the Jedi, screw the Sith or whatever they're being called now. Like, we just go and take it and make it as good as we can. And sure, there is some dark elements behind that. Like, it would involve turning on both sides of the war. But at the same time, that was possibly one of the better solutions they could have come up with. Instead, we're left with Kylo Ren feeling like he's being abandoned by a person who he was starting to connect with. And because of that, he's going to the far dark side, the furthest anyone has probably ever been before. And I think he'll go further than Darth Vader in his kind of fall from grace, or small kind of grace that he had in that scene. Rey is having to balance that out, so she's having to go to as far as she can go in the opposite direction. And we were at the crossroads. They were coming closer and closer together throughout the entire film. We came to the crossroads, and instead of crossing over, they split apart again.
You couldn't have had the sort of the central conflict without it. I'm with you on that completely. I reckon, I reckon you're absolutely bang on the money. Next film, Kylo Ren is going to be far worse than anything we've ever seen.
Completely beyond. I think the first scene, if they make it like a 12 again, or if they make it a 15, the first scene is going to be him like chopping people's heads off.
I hope he just drop kicks a Porg.
Does anyone remember the game Force Unleashed 2? They did some Endor DLC where you could go to Endor and you could drop kick Ewoks, and it was amazing and incredibly cathartic as well.
I think the first scene is going to be, he's not going to command other people to do his own work anymore. He's not going to be like in The Force Awakens where he says, okay, Phasma, kill all the villagers. He is going to do it himself.
Yeah.
He is going to lead by example. And because of that, I don't think he's going to be focused on like large super weapons or large ships or anything like that. I think he is just going to go through the galaxy with a small squad, probably the Knights of Ren, and maybe a small kind of army of stormtroopers, and he is just going to lay waste to it. He's just going to sack it. He's not going to like go in and just shoot from afar with his grand laser Death Star cannon. He's not going to have these massive battles in space. He is going to be like a guerrilla task force, and he is going to like topple planets through being on the planet.
Up until the point when
it's going to be ridiculous.
Hux stabs him in the back, because that's what's going to happen.
I think Hux is going to tell the stormtroopers to open fire on him, and he is going to see that everyone is turning against him, and because of that, that's going to make him more powerful and more dangerous.
Is it going to be like a Coyadi-Mundi moment from Revenge of the Sith? It's going to be like Hux and the stormtroopers, like the feet just stopping and then opening fire on Kylo Ren.
I hope when Hux does that, when he gives that order, I hope he has maybe like some sort of numerical code for it that's nice and easy to remember. Maybe, I don't know.
How about
67 or something?
Yeah, 60, I don't know. 67's too high. One down might work.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. No one would think of that. That would be brilliant.
Speaking of Hux, though, I do love that little scene that comes in like right after Kylo Ren wakes up after the lightsaber explodes, and he like reaches in for a gun and then sees him moving like shit. I'm just gonna close my coat. See anything. I love that moment. It's such a little character moment, but that's just Hux to a T right there.
But seriously, next film, I think even the First Order are gonna turn on Kylo Ren, and I think it's just gonna be.
Absolutely.
He's going to be left alone at the end, and that's going to leave him more volatile than ever. And I genuinely think that is going to make him the most dangerous Star Wars character of all time.
Especially, of course, after being humiliated in front of the First Order by Luke.
Yes,
or not by Luke.
think that's going to make him even worse.
Yeah.
I wonder if they could do like an ending of Kubo and the Two Strings and sort of like give him a forced lobotomy and make him forget all the things he's done and ingratiate him into the Skywalker family again.
And then everyone else around him just lives with the lie.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, that film was so good.
Yes, it was. Go see Kubo and the Two Strings if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah, should we talk about the finale?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the finale. Crate, a planet which no one had ever heard of. If they'd said we're trying to make, if they said at the very start when they're running away, if they said at the very start when they're running away from the fleet, we've got to make it to Crate, and the entire plan was we're gonna survive till Crate, and then we'll make our stand there. Perfect. But no, it just so happened to be, oh, we're near a planet. Oh, look, it just so happens to be an old rebel base. What do you know?
There's an element of that, yeah.
So a little bit of behind the scenes. So we talk Star Wars all the time on the group chat, and me and George pretty much started World War III over whether Crate was similar to Hoth or not. Now I know
it isn't similar to Hoth, and do you know why? That one dude stuck his finger in the material on the ground, licked it, and said, "It's salt," which is starting to become. I'm not gonna lie, that is starting to become an amazing meme on the internet right now, where people are responding to comments where people are getting really salty, doing the whole "it's salt."
My favorite meme so far is still Director Krennic. I wanted to have a poster outside of this film just going, "We were this close to perfection."
I've said my piece on Crate. I think it's at least visually similar to Hoth.
Yeah.
The line of rebel ships going towards a line of AT-ATs, barren white landscape. You've got the trenches. You've got the binocular shot. Abandoned rebel base or old rebel base. It's kind of like Hoth. They don't do a tow cable thing. I'm not saying that it is the Battle of Hoth, but it's at least visually similar to that, I think. That's just me. Yeah. Maybe am I the only one there? People comment if you thought it was like Hoth too, I guess. And then I guess we get.
It's just a bit of a. I was going to say, it's just a bit of a. It's a bit of a waste of a scene, really.
I think like you have that finale. Yeah. Sorry.
Some of the great highs of the film, and it's just such a ball ache to have to sit through. It's reasonably long to get to the bit that matters, which is Luke versus Ren. Yeah, and
then when it gets to Luke versus Ren, you have Kylo Ren does the obvious thing, open fire, and I'm not going to lie. All I thought about was Luke going, and it started firing back. Holy shit. Imagine if the bullets started coming back. Holy crap.
I thought he should have held his hand out like Darth Vader and just...
No, it'd be like Neo at the end of The Matrix when he just stops all the laser blasts.
And then what's it called? Poe just kind of leans into the camera and says, "He's the one."
See, what was I going to say about that? Yeah, so you talked about the ending of Crate feels sort of like tacked on, and I guess like structurally, to me, the finale felt like the whole Snoke, Rey, Kylo part. I wonder if you could have had a moment where Luke shows up there and included all that bit there and have him make like his stand there. I know he would have been away from the rebels though, and you couldn't really do that, but you could have made that.
What I would have done is, I don't know. What I would have done is just have them reach Crate, have them all set up for a fight. But then before like this big run on the Death Star battering cannon rubbish, just stop all that and just have Luke come out ahead of the rebels. You know, so they're all there, just stop. So you cut this battle, it's just trimming the fat off it. Because you have to sit through this whole battle and you have to sit through Rose rescuing Finn, and you have to sit through the Death Star battering cannon. You have to sit through Kylo Ren antics with hooks. And, just cut.
Do you think Luke's sacrifice at the end would have been more poignant if he had have actually been there in person?
No.
I
kind of like the fact that he wasn't there, and then the way I see it was he wasn't using the Force for years, and because of that, he'd become almost kind of like lame in the sense of the Force, so he was sterile Force-wise. Because of that, when he finally did the whole some people can use the Force in times of great need, his is obviously amplified because he's a Force user anyway, but coming back to the Force actually killed him in the end, and it made him go in a peaceful way.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say, just out of nowhere, just as another nerd thing, the bit where Rey says you've cut yourself off from the Force, also something they nicked from Knights of the Old Republic. That's what
is that a
Yoda
line
does.
or an idea?
It's a line. It's the central theme of the game, or one of the central themes of the game, being able to cut oneself off and the damage it does. Just as a point. But I agree with you again, Tate. The fact that he this massive exertion, it was a perfect way for it to sort of end. I'm quite glad it was just a projection. The only thing I would have changed is given the green lightsaber.
Yeah,
That'll be it.
Yeah, that was the first tell for me, and I kept nudging you, Tate, and you were trying to like watch the movie, and I'm really sorry about that. I kept saying like, "Why is that a different blue lightsaber? How has he got the blue lightsaber? That was just torn in half." And I knew something was up there. I didn't know they were going to have him projecting a vision from the island, but it shows how like overpowered Luke has become now. And I mean, he pretty much spends all his energy doing this, which results in his death, which I thought was really, really cool in that regard. Some people are commenting saying Luke will traumatize Kylo in episode 9 because he does say, if you strike me down,
I'll be there with you.
I'll be there with you, or something like that. That would
I'll be there
really
with
cool.
you. I'll be there with you through your hatred, I believe the line was.
I mean, we won't have seen that, like Force ghosts sort of haunting people and traumatizing.
I don't think it'll be haunting. It'll be traumatizing for Kylo Ren, but it'll be Luke just kind of lingering in the background, just kind of whispering the good words into him.
Yeah.
And I don't think Snoke, unless Snoke's whole purpose was he knew that Kylo Ren was going to kill him because he's that Force sensitive, he wouldn't have got carried away with it. I've seen this theory out there, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Snoke allowed Kylo Ren to kill him so that he could further his kind of cause towards the dark side. He keeps on pressuring him and taunting him throughout the entire film, and he's trying to push him as hard as he can. He tries to get him to kill Rey, and sure, it would have worked either way if he'd killed Rey or if he'd killed Snoke. By killing Snoke, Snoke can finally kind of whisper in his ear and teach him further in the ways of the dark side and make him become a more dangerous character.
I worry that that's what's going to happen because episode 9 is not in the hands of a particularly ambitious director. So I think we probably will get Circus Reprises role whispering in Ren's ear. Luke will come back. I think that was probably likely to happen anyway, particularly because we haven't got Carrie Fisher and you can't make the film about Leia without her. I think we'll get Luke come back. He'll be nagging Kylo Ren all the way through.
Unless it'd be really weird. It'd be really weird if the Force Ghosts swapped. So it's Snoke whispering in Rey's ear, and
I think that's just too predictable.
I know, but being predictable, that's probably going to happen, isn't it?
It is J.J. Abrams after all,
right?
J.J.
Abrams. Oh yeah.
Okay. So finally,
did we talk? Oh, did we talk about the Luke and Leia scene?
No. When I think
that's before the sacrifice, but
Leia realized immediately that wasn't Luke.
Yeah.
You could see it in her face.
Yeah.
What I thought was weird, even on a second viewing, is there's a moment where Kylo walks into the base and he picks up the gold dice that were in the Falcon and belonged to Han Solo, and they disappear in his hands. So did Luke create that as part of the vision too? To kind of fuck with him? Or I think it would have been better if like they had actually have left those behind and that was something tangible he had of his father.
Oh, no. Yeah. Must have created the vision because they were he took them.
Yeah. And it just seemed really weird. I would have had that as an actual physical item that he picked up, which I guess brings us up to the ending. So I think personally it's setting up for a love square between Poe, Finn, Rey, and Rose. I really don't want to see Finn and Rose together. I do want Finn to eventually get with Rey. Although then again, I don't know if they've set up all that much. There was a few little elements in the first movie, but it didn't seem like it was amounting to anything.
Okay, talking about this scene basically means we're talking about the next film already. And I'm willing to go ahead and say that in the next film, one of the three, in fact, one of those four are going to die. Rose is going to die. If Rose dies, Finn also dies at the same time. If Rey dies, Kylo Ren dies at the same time. They kill each other to end the battle. If Poe dies, I think Poe dies alone. And if Finn dies, I think either Rey or Rose has to also die.
Just kill them all.
I think they're going to cheapen out. I think they're not going to go for a human character death. I think they're going to go for BB-8 being killed.
No, they won't do that. That'll be the saddest death in Disney history since Mufasa or Bambi's mum.
They'll blow up R2-D2.
Just get rid of all the old cast. Who needs them, right?
Imagine just Kylo Ren walking in, just slicing up BB-8 and just saying, "You're terminated."
And what he'll do, remember, this is a Disney film. He'll slice it in, but BB-8 will do whoop from head from the body and then just reattach.
Oh,
What will happen
no.
is, I think we'll get the death of Chewbacca, and that'll be it. Last of the old cast gone, and that'll be the only main characters who die.
What about C-3PO? Imagine C-3PO's death. That would just be fucking devastating.
I get off to that. No.
Or I think if C-3PO is going to die, I think it'll be him being reset to factory settings. I think it'll be him being reset into a babbling mess. And that will be more painful than him actually.
C-3PO gets dementia. That's fucked up. That's darker than Disney.
Kids film, guys.
I wouldn't be surprised if 3PO got turned off by Kylo Ren. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
No.
Hey, he's got the bod in this movie. I think everyone's turned on by Kylo Ren, to be honest.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Kylo Ren turns him off because, it's the last relic of Anakin Skywalker that exists in this universe. But he won't kill him off because you can't. Too easy for Disney.
Oh, I keep forgetting that Anakin built C-3PO. I hate that so much. I hate that. I hate it. What else can I talk about? So, yeah, I think it's leading to some relation. But again, it seems like this episode 9 is going to have to juggle so much, like all the relationships, if they do flourish. Like, is it too late to do it in a third movie? The one with Han and Leia, for example, started in the original movie. It really hit home in the second movie, and then it sort of, built to its conclusion.
That's why I think if anything's going to happen, Finn and Rey are going to end up together. And
also, what did Rey say to Chewbacca? She says to Chewbacca, "Tell Finn," and then she goes, "Yeah, tell him that." Was that an "I love him," or was that something else?
I think it was probably.
Nah, she's checking up with Kylo Ren.
If Rian Johnson was right in the next one, it would be like, "Ask if I turn the oven off," or something. It would be something completely out of left field. I hope it's an "I love you," but then again, do I really care about them together? Because they haven't really had much chemistry.
They bonded. They had good chemistry in the first film, but they had zero screen time.
They needed it in this. They needed it in this. It's kind of like the Billy D. Williams as Two-Face thing. Like, he was in the first Batman movie, didn't put him in the second one, and then by the time you get to the third,
I'm also willing to say that at the same time, Finn asked about Rey, Rey asked about Finn in this film, so they still have feelings for each other. And I just don't think it was played up enough. And especially at the end, it's meant to show you, oh, maybe they're not meant to be for each other. But I'm going to be honest here. If I was going to write the film, I would write out Rose like at the very start of the next film. I would have her being the first major death of the film.
She should have died in a sacrifice. Finn, I think Finn should have died. I think Finn should have sacrificed himself at the end with a film that cheated death with way too many characters. Apart from
I think it would have been better if she crashed into him, and in doing so, Finn survived and she died.
Because she does the Miranda Tate thing, right? She does the whole like classic death thing.
That would have been good if she had died in that scene right there.
Yeah.
If not, I'll settle for her being. Oh my god! I'll settle for her being a non-moving character. I mean, she could be put in a wheelchair or something. I don't know.
I think y'all are both reading too much into Finn and Rey. They're platonic. There's no romantic connection between either. They're totally platonic.
There is a look that Rey gives.
They're just
Finn
totally platonic.
In The Force Awakens. There's a look that Rey gives Finn in The Force Awakens when she finds out that he's part of the Resistance that looks like a little kid on Christmas.
And she looks at him at the end of this movie too. Like when she sees him with Rose, she's like, "Oh." Will it be really dark at the end of at the start of the next one? Like Rey will be the one to pull Rose's plug.
Listen. Finn is not going to end up with Rey. They're platonic. Finn will end up with Poe like he's supposed to after Rose gets killed.
Find you a man who looks at you like Poe does to Finn.
Rey
keep the jacket. It looks good on you, but I'll take it off you later.
Star Wars has got X-rated. Wouldn't be the first time.
Well, I don't know why, but I think it's after George put up a picture of Danny DeVito at the premiere. All I can think of is Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Star Wars crossover. him coming in. The First Order are coming! Quick, look busy! The gang takes down the First Order.
Question.
Yes.
Is episode 9 going to suck?
Yes. Because based on this last shot, it's of this movie, it's made me very, very worried. We get that youngling who was in like the space horse stable. It's a very weird ending shot. It completely takes all the momentum out of the finale, in my opinion. And then we see that he's, you know, he has the ability to use the Force. He forces the broom into his own hand, and then he kind of lifts it up like a lightsaber, looking into the stars at the shooting star, and then it kind of focuses on him like, this kid is going to be a protagonist of something one day. It's
not like they're doing another prequel series to another Darth Vader, and he just so happens to be evil.
They haven't said a prequel. They've said that it's going to be a different period, a completely different time to everything else. So what I'm worried about now, after watching this, if the younglings aren't going to feature in episode 9, and that was just thrown in there, Rian Johnson's got his own trilogy now that he's going to be directing. He's going to be looking for new characters, new protagonists, everything like that.
Just remember that the new Avatar film is going to be, the main protagonists are going to be kids.
Yeah, now that's what I'm worried about. Will this new trilogy be the story of this kid, either as he's older, 10 years older, or whatever? Is it going to be him? Is he going to be like the Star Child at the end of Mass Effect?
Now,
is that going to be this character?
If there is going to be one kid who I would want to do a Star Wars film right now, and it would probably be two people. They're both from Stranger Things. It would be the person playing Eleven and the person playing Finn. Person playing Mike. Because I could see 11 being like on the dark side of the Force, and I could probably see Mike being on the dark side of the Force or the light side of the Force. Like, I see that as a brilliant kind of like young Jedi kind of rivalry type thing. But no, do you know what it's going to be like? It'll be like exactly the same as what these films have been, exactly the same as what the prequels have been, exactly the same as what the original trilogy has been. It will just be 3 films back to back telling a story about good and evil in another time set.
Maybe I was confused. Maybe I thought the Porgs were going to be the new Ewoks. Maybe the younglings are going to be the new Ewoks in the next movie. Is it going to be like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and you got like this, or the ending of Hook, where you've got this army of kids that fight back and manage to beat back all the stormtroopers? It's this possibility. It really is.
Now, I want to talk about the lightsabers.
Okay.
I think Rey's going to have a Maul lightsaber next film. I think she's going to have a blue Maul lightsaber because she fights with a staff. That's what her fighting style has all been about. She always holds the staff in the middle and she fights with both sides. What would be the point in her having a lightsaber where you can only fight with one side? Like, she has 2 kyber crystals now, or whatever they're called, and she can make a dual lightsaber with it.
I suspect that'll be the case, but only because it's J.J. Abrams directing it and he hasn't got a creative bone in his body.
Yeah.
I think if it was... do you know what I think? Actually, I don't really give a toss what lightsaber she has. Doesn't really matter. Sorry.
This is, and I guess I'm going to get on to final thoughts now. This is the sad thing with me with this movie.
Sorry.
I didn't hate this movie.
No.
It was average, and that almost saddens me to say that I now go to a Star Wars movie out of obligation because I'm past all hope that I'll love one. I liked Rogue One, but the ratio and where I'm thinking they're going to head and the tone of them, I don't know. I'll still go and see them because it's Star Wars. And that's really sad to me now. This movie isn't bad. It has some pacing issues. It has some structure issues. It has some writing issues. And it is a flawed movie. I liked some of the twists they implemented into it. However, I'm for the side that I think that not all of them worked. And I think it took away some of the interesting storylines that could have had potential. Maybe they will still be there in episode 9. Maybe Snoke will come back and all these things that we've talked about. As it stands, I think this has disappointed a few people.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling slightly now the Star Wars fatigue a little bit. And we've only got to wait 5 months until May, 6 months, however many it is until May.
And then it's like another year and a half until episode 9.
Yeah, but here's the thing with this movie, I've seen it twice now. I'm not in a rush to go and see it again. Rogue One, I went to see at the cinema 6 times. Force Awakens, I went twice. this I'll probably stick at twice. There's no part of this movie that's going to make me rush back and go and see it now I've seen it twice. And that's kind of sad. But that's my overall thoughts on it anyway. If you guys want to... final thoughts, you guys?
Okay. It's close. I'm willing to say that this film is close. By that, I mean it's got a solid structure, and with a little bit of shuffling around, this could have been a very good film. The fact that it is close still puts me in the camp of unsure, and I'll have to see it for a second time. Hell, who knows? The jokes might land a bit more the second time round. I may enjoy some scenes better instead of going, what the fuck is going on? Now that I know what's going on, I may be able to focus on like the actual details of the scene a bit more. But for this time being, I am leaning towards the side of it being a good film, but not a standout good film. Like I said at the start, it has possibly two of the best and two of the worst moments in Star Wars. It's very polarizing, and because of that, I can't really judge it on one viewing.
I think it's a good film. I don't think it's a great film. I think it has way too many problems to be one of the best Star Wars films, or indeed one of the better films out. It needs some really judicious editing. It needs, like you say, it's got some writing issues, it's got some pacing issues, but it does have some absolutely standout moments. The last hour makes it pretty much all worth it. Were it a less busy cinema screening when we went to see it, I think that last hour would have, that might almost have been worth sort of a whoop of joy near the end. It is a really parts of it are really, really good, and the parts that are really good are absolutely phenomenal, and the parts that aren't I want to see it again, but the parts that aren't, knowing I'd have to sit through Canto Bight, knowing I'd have to sit through the opening of Achto, that's not really a good sign, is it? When you go like, I want to see it again, but I think it's ambitious. I love what it tried to do thematically. I love its character arcs. I think it's got some brilliant performance, but yeah, it's just some stuff that pulls it back a bit. So it's a good film, but not one I'm in a hurry to see again.
I'll agree with that. So I guess that'll bring it to a close. I don't know how long we've been going for. It feels like we've gone way over 2 hours, definitely.
I think so.
But no, the comments have been absolutely great tonight. I'm really sorry I haven't had time to message all of you. I've tried to bring you into the comment as much as I can. Someone says, for me, it's my favorite Star Wars film so far because it's unique.
Good.
Because it...
Fair play, I'd say.
Yeah.
Good.
I think they've compared it to Empire Strikes Back in that sort of like pushed boundaries, and so is this one in a different way.
I think think it's a bit tragic that some people have been so angry about it. And if people hated it, fair enough. You can't expect everyone to like it, but I do think it's a shame that it's provoked such horrible bile out of it.
This would have been interesting for me, like in frames of a comparison, if Force Awakens hadn't existed and we lived in a much better world because of it. Say this was the first Star Wars movie that came back. This was the first one after so many years.
If it was the one that set the tone, it would have been amazing. We wouldn't be in the situation. We would be saying this is a masterpiece.
Yeah. See, I don't know. I don't know whether I'd feel the same way that I did with Force Awakens to this movie had this have been the first one. I don't know whether my love for this, well, love isn't the right word. Me liking this film is akin to me really disliking Force Awakens and liking that they gave more meat to the characters in this one and pushed for new things. I don't know whether I would have liked this film as much had this have been the one that they came back with. This was the first Disney Star Wars movie. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I guess that, as I said, it's average. It's fine. Go and see it. I definitely think it's worth watching it a second time, though, just to cement your thoughts if you're unsure on it on the first time. But we'll round off now. Thank you, everyone in the comments. You've all been great. Lots of theories going on there. And, please continue the comments after this live stream is all said and done. Subscribe, spread the word, all that good stuff. And I don't actually think we're done with Star Wars content. Maybe for this month, because we're all very busy, and obviously it's the lead up to Christmas and holidays and New Year. We do have a few more ideas for some other Star Wars videos to do, another top 10 list, a few more fun discussion videos, and Lord willing, a Battle of the Brackets at some point in January. That will be a show that will be returning. Big thank you to James for jumping on tonight, talking about Star Wars. I'll definitely get you back on sometime. And Tayte all the way from Austria.
Yes, I am.
But yeah, no, that will do it for us. And yeah, I guess whichever the next video will be, probably a Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle review to break up the Star Wars videos. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.